forward once again. This is season 2, episode 3. And I'm not going to do that cadence all the time. I'm just feel like doing it today. But anyway, in this season of the Forward podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about practical solutions to real shit. I mean, because we all have shit that we have to deal with. And what we don't need are a bunch of platitudes and a bunch of rah, rah, rah. Listen, what you need is just something that helps you navigate where the rubber meets the road. And so today, I want to talk about balancing logic and emotions. And before we even get into that, I want to talk about what logic and emotions actually are. So, logic by default is a method of making decisions that use sound and rational decision making to find the best conclusions. Emotions, on the other hand, are true feeling. So, let's talk about, first of all, let's talk about emotions first, because one of the things that people will tell you in life coaching and all of that stuff is to kind of put the kibosh on your emotions, to somehow suppress your emotions. And what I want you to understand is that you should never, ever, 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 ever suppress an emotion. There are four basic emotions, right? Four basic emotions, and they're happiness, sadness, fear, and anger. And people will tell you, like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Listen, fear is natural. And sometimes fear will save your life. If you have a fear of live electricity and you don't understand how to protect yourself against live electricity, that fear could save your life. Fear of driving too fast can save your life. Fear of the consequences of unprotected sex can save your life. So there's a place for fear. And if you let the big thing is that you don't want to let your emotions rule you, right? Because you have to understand that we are human. We are spiritual. And because of that, we have a full range of emotions, and these emotions are a gift from the universe to us. But you want to balance those emotions with logic. In other words, in every single case where an emotion comes over you, you need to ask yourself, does this make sense? And if it makes sense, in other words, it's reasonable, it's practical, it's then you could take that and run with it. In other words, if you're thinking, okay, this I'm kind of concerned about this, I'm afraid of this, but it makes sense for me to do this because, like, for example, here's a good example. When you see an injustice and you are afraid of speaking up because of the repercussions that may come from that, that may create a fear in you. But if you balance that fear out with logic and you say, okay, I see that there is a greater good by me lending my voice to this and to speak up and speak out against the injustice. Now you're balancing the emotion with logic. And this is really important because people will tell you, don't be too logical. You don't want to be a Vulcan like Mr. Spock. And and here's my thing. If I could be a perfectly logical being, I would. I respect that. That's me. I don't believe in suppressing emotions, but I also believe that logic should reign supreme over emotions. But that's just me. Now, I'm not telling you how to do this, but that's me. But what I found is for most people is finding the right balance In other words, you don't want to be too logical to the point where you are not feeling, because see, if you stop feeling, empathy and compassion may elude you. And empathy and compassion are the key components of love. So that means if you don't have this empathy and compassion, if you're not feeling, then you can't love. And that means you can't have empathy, you can't have compassion. You're just doing everything as paint by numbers. And that's not really the way to live either. So let's talk about happiness, because happiness is the holy grail for everybody. And I want you to hear something, and I want you to hear it clearly. I want you to internalize this in your spirit, write it down, eh, tattoo it on your forearm. I don't care, but get this down in your spirit. You deserve to be happy. And let me tell you this, that the reason why people are unhappy is because they don't believe they deserve to be happy, which then causes them to make others unhappy, because misery loves company. But let me say this too, and write this down: happiness enjoys company. Listen, happy people attract happy people, and happy people make happy people. But miserable people attract miserable people, and they make others miserable, because that is the cycle of how it works. So we want to look at happiness. I used to say this back in my preaching days. I used to say, "Well, happiness is conditional, but joy is positional." And, and you know something, that's absolutely true. I hate to recall anything from my preaching days and try to roll that into anything, but here's the thing: when you are happiness is conditional. It's like if you have money in the bank, you and your spouse are getting along, your children are behaving, your job is going good, or your business is going good, and you're happy, right? Because the conditions, the prevailing conditions promote happiness. But but what happens when there's friction between the spouse, the kids aren't acting right, the money in the bank isn't there, or the job or the business is not doing what it should be doing? What then? Do you just cash it in and just, crawl into the fetal position and just say fuck it? No. At some point you have to say that there is something in me that is greater than the conditions before me. And when you find that, here's what happens: you develop a an inner peace that is not driven by your circumstances. And that is where bliss comes in, because now you have married your joy, which is that which is not driven by your circumstances. In other words, I love me some me. I'm happy with the choices that I make, or I'm at peace with the choices that I make. That it doesn't matter whether I have money in the bank or whether I have friction with people or not. These things don't matter. I'm just at peace. And when you do that, you get off the happiness roller coaster. You stop looking for what makes you happy and realize that you're grounded and rooted in joy. And again, here's the thing: you have to balance that with logic and reason, because sometimes you might be happy over something that you shouldn't be. It's funny to me how I see some people being happy over the failure of others. Now, let me qualify that because I get happy over the failure of people whose aim is to harm or to uh, otherwise disparage humanity. In other words, I get great joy when I see racists fail. I get great joy when I see sexists fail because I don't want to see that shit succeed. That's no good for humanity. But when when somebody is trying to start a business or they're trying to repair their marriage or they're trying to repair a breach with their children and it works, I celebrate that. So again, here's the balance between logic and emotions because your emotions might say, "Hey, um, it, it- and I'm just going to say this. I'm going to use me as an example because of where I am spiritually today. There are a lot of people that are literally they're praying to their God for me to fail. And I hate to disappoint you people, but I'm not going to fail. That failure is not part of my lexicon. It's not part of my repertoire. Again, when you're asking for something or celebrating something that you shouldn't, that's not balancing your emotions with logic. So let's go on. Let's go on. We talked about fear and we've talked about happiness. Now let's talk about sadness because listen, everybody experiences sadness. When loss triggers sadness. Disappointment triggers sadness. Um, Misunderstanding creates sadness. And I've actually sat in motivational speeches where people will say, well, you just have to have a positive mental attitude and you have to subordinate your sadness. And let me say this: be sad. Be sad. You know, when I was a kid, they used to tell us little boys, don't cry because men don't cry. When I was raising my sons, I said, when if they cried, I asked them, "Why are you crying?" And if they tell me something, they say, "Well, it's this, that, and the other." And I say, "Well, that's a good reason to cry." Say, "You want me to cry with you?" And and it's funny how that will work out because sometimes kids would actually say, "Yeah, I need you to cry with me." And then sometimes they would say, "Well, no." And that triggered something in them that said, "Hey, I don't need to cry anymore." But it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad because there is something cathartic, something healing about. I mean, when you emerge from your grief, when you emerge from your sadness, when you come out of that pit, there is something about that that is energizing, that is healing, that gets you. It changes your frame of mind. And one of the things that I think happens is that you see how it feels to get up out of it, to have your happiness restored. That's a beautiful thing. But again, to go back to this joy thing, is that if you have joy, even if you have sadness, you understand the sadness is a temporary waypoint on the journey and not a destination. Okay. Gotta understand that because listen, all of these emotions are pass throughs. In other words, you're going to experience different emotions in different contexts and different circumstances, different situations. And none of them, listen, if you park in any emotion permanently, even happiness, Because what happens is that if you park in happiness, you kind of relinquish your grip on reality because life ain't happy all the time. But it's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. It is okay. And again, the whole positive mental attitude crowd. And listen, it's great to cultivate a positive mental attitude. It's great to do that. But you have to understand that it's not all going to be unicorns and rainbows all the time. Okay. So, what happens when sadness comes? How do you deal with that? Well, you balance that out with logic and reason. You ask yourself, why am I sad? Is this something that has a profound or pronounced impact on my life? And if it does, it's okay to grieve. It's okay to cry. But sometimes you might be sad over something that doesn't even concern you, that has no meaningful impact on your life. And when that happens, you have to allow logic and reason to rule over that moment of sadness because that's what will help you recover. So we've gone through happiness, sadness, fear, and last but not least, anger. Anger. You don't want me to be angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. And that's true. Don't fuck with me. But seriously, you can be angry, right? But anger is a very dangerous emotion because anger is that one emotion that usually leads to hurt or harm, either hurt or harm of yourself or hurt or harm of others. And you don't want to let your anger get the best of you. Now, I'm of the mindset that there is a righteous anger. You know, um, there's a young man in Minneapolis that got killed by the police yesterday. Uh, and um, and I'm just like I'm pissed. I'm angry that the police keep killing unarmed black men, but I'm angry at so-called white Christians because they won't say anything about it. And when you do say something about it, they say, "Oh, well, Derrick, don't talk about social justice and don't talk about civil rights. Just talk about Jesus. Just talk about love." Man, fuck that. This makes me angry. But here's the deal: that anger cannot come out in the way of "I want to cuss you out." Because listen, y'all, some of y'all that listen to this podcast that have seen my videos on Facebook or whatever, you think that man, this guy really cusses a lot. And he must be a really, bitter person. I'm not a bitter person. Personally, I call cussing sentence spice. It just adds to the flavor of the speech. But the thing is that excuse me, is that there are times when people say things to me that literally make me want to cuss them out. Now, here's the deal: it's the difference between using profanity. It's the difference between cussing and cussing someone out. See, when you cuss, there may be a logic or a reason to that, as I often do. But when you cuss somebody out, you've thrown logic and reason out the window, and you're driven by your emotions. And now, what you want to do is you just want to knock somebody's dick in the dirt. And that's not cool. So I look at like this anger is the one emotion that really must be tempered with logic and reason. It absolutely has to be, because if it isn't, let me tell you something. Anger is the emotion that will send your ass to jail. Or anger is the emotion that will get you punched in the mouth. Or anger is the emotion that will render you to the Undertaker's slab. In other words, don't let anger get the best of you. We used to say in the hood, don't write checks with your mouth that your ass can't cash. And that's true. That's real talk, y'all. Because what happens is, you get angry and you want to go out or go in on somebody who you really ought not to, and you wind up getting fucked up as a result. Keep your anger in check. Now, let me go to logic and reason, because this is the thing that sets us apart from the animal kingdom, that we have the ability to reason things out, that we have the ability to look at things logically. And this is basically it's looking at things and you say, okay, does this make sense? Is there a rhyme or reason to this? Is there a method to this? Is there a purpose to this? What is the outcome of this? What are the ramifications of this? And all of this is really important, because we are thinking beings. And see, that's the problem, is that when you get overcome with emotion and you don't balance that with reason or logic, then your emotions get the best of you and you are not thinking rationally. It is tantamount to being over the top drunk or high, or, you know, blitzed, or whatever you want to call it. You're not thinking right, because the thing is, we are thinking beings. And as my man Kyle Butler likes to say, thinking is good. Because that, again, the ability to think, the ability to reason, the ability to apply logic, basically, like, if then and or, right? That's what you call Boolean logic, right? Look it up. I'm not going to explain it, but that it's our ability to apply this logic to our decision processes that set us apart from the animals. And again, watch this. If you look at the most successful people in history, they are the people that have been able to check their emotions with logic. And that's the key. You want to always be in control. And that's what logic and reason do. Logic and reason give you it gives you boundaries. Listen, we talk about boundaries all the time and why it's important to have boundaries in relationships. But bruh, sis, you need to have boundaries with you, because there are a lot of forces, a lot of things going on in your head and your heart, and they are all competing for control of your psyche and your spirit. And so you have to define some boundaries to keep all of that in check. Because listen, if you don't do that, then something happens where that will, it'll wind you up hurt, it'll wind you up dead, it'll wind you up broke, and all of that. And here's another thing, like balancing logic and reason. This is like when you're making big purchases, when you're purchasing a car or you're purchasing a home. You have to look at, okay, yeah, that's beautiful, that's nice, but you have to ask yourself, man, can I afford that? Right now, I was watching this video. There's a car that I like, and I'm really I'm really thinking about getting this, but because you can get these cars fairly cheaply now, but it still has to be maintained. And that maintenance doesn't depreciate like the car did. So I have to think about this because my emotions say, "Ooh, bling bling," right? And you get excited. You say, "Man, I can see myself driving in that." You only live once, kind of thing. YOLO, right? But at the same time, you got to get oil changes. You got to have bushings changed, shocks changed. You got to have valves adjusted. All of these things, and that shit ain't cheap. So if I were to just go with my emotions, go with my gut, and say, "Well, I want this," and not consider the cost. That means I haven't applied logic and reason to my decision. That's just probably about the best example that I can give. So, this is the part where the podcast ends, and I'm going to drop a link into the chat. And here's the deal: if you are doing this on your phone, right? Copy the link into your browser, and then you can get on Restream and you can join the call because I would love to have you on to talk about what we just talked about. Or if you have any input, insight, or anything like that. And who knows? I mean, if it's really good shit, man, we'll put it in the podcast. I'm not above that. So anyway, here is the link. Boom. It's in the chat. So you can click on that and um, and join in if you like. But another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and I'm going to read some of the comments because I saw some really good shit coming on. But understand, guys, that this is while this is a Facebook Live in the sense that I'm live. I'm doing this as my podcast, so I'm not responding to you in real time, but I want to respond to every comment. So, my sister Sandy, always good to see you. Love you, sis. Just glad that you're here. Karen Jones, thank you. Good morning to you too. My man, Kyle Butler, and I actually called out Kyle in the video. Taryn Jerome Harris, man, he said, "I just shared your podcast. Man, bless you." This is real talk, and I really believe that this season 2 of the Forward podcast, is really, really, really going to help some people. Kyle says logic is so necessary. You goddamn right it is. uh, Micah Hussey, take every thought into captivity. Yeah, that's one of those rare Bible verses that actually makes sense, proving once again that a broken clock is right twice a day. UD Santoso, he says good evening. So he must be on the other side of the world somewhere. C. Rodriguez, when you feel, you heal. Y'all should write that down. I'm gonna write that down because that's dope. My man Ben Urban, he's here. Good to see you. Nia Franklin, the purpose driven one, is here. Uh, let's see. Yeah. Ben Urban says, "Goddamn right." Yeah, you goddamn right. I'm gonna tell you something. That's like my favorite line from Breaking Bad. When Walter, aka Heisenberg, says, there are two lines that he says, "You're goddamn right," and the other one is, "I am the danger." I love those two lines. And Cal says, "Failure and you definitely don't mix." You goddamn right, brother. Karen Jones says, "You can never fail being authentically you, in my opinion." That's true. If you are you, then you're authentic, and failure is not in your repertoire. Vanessa Brooks, good to see you, my sister. We're gonna have to get together and do a live stream one day. Um, I think that would be really dope. And Vanessa also says emotional intelligence will help balance the two. You know something that is absolutely correct. There like emotional intelligence and EQ, emotional quotient, versus IQ. That though you need to balance your EQ and your IQ. I think I may do a show on that. I may do a podcast episode on that. Flora Samuel says, "Yes, check emotions with logic and reasoning." Yeah, Kyle, you saw the plug there. Thinking is good. You goddamn right. And then my sister said, "You have to have boundaries within you," and that's I'm telling you, man. y'all write that down. That one's going to help you. Oh man, my man Tony Hill. This was like my BFF in the Navy, man. I mean, me and him, we used to get into some stuff together, and he's living his best life, living and working in Japan. And so Tony, man, it's always good to see you on, man. Oh, Ben Urban has just checked into the green room. And C. Rodriguez says, think for yourself or others will think for you without thinking if you. And I'm completely in agreement. So here we go. Ben, my dude. I can't hear you, man. Got to get mic'd up. I still can't hear you, bro. Hang on for a second. Let me just double check and make sure that everything. Okay, so check this out. If you're in Restream, there's a little gear icon. It says settings. Click that icon and then go to audio and tell it what device is that you're speaking into. Nope, not yet. Gabriela Perez says everyone loves an honest person. You know what? That should be true, Gabriela, but it's not always true. Ben says his microphone isn't working. Hopefully he can get that sorted out because I'm gonna hang around here for about 10 more minutes. Give everybody a chance to chime in because listen, at the end of the day, and also if you have a subject that you want to tackle, I mean, now think about this because what I'm doing in this season are things that are practical and relevant. I'm not trying to do anything high conceptual, definitely not doing anything religious, not anything political or anything like that. But if you have something that's real practical that you're saying, like, man, I wish I could get some insight into that, uh, please drop it in the chat and I'll put it into into the show schedule because I'm of the mindset that if it ain't useful, it ain't useful, right? So if you can't make use of it, it doesn't really help anybody. And I really, really, really want to help. And I also believe that once you understand some of these basic principles that we're going over, that this will unlock your potential. This will help you overcome some of the things that have hindered you or they present themselves as hurdles to you and you'll start working past these things and you'll see some fantastic results, and that's what we're all about here. Excuse me, is getting results. So I don't know if Ben is going to come back or not. Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. But yeah, back to what Vanessa was saying about emotional intelligence. Um, that's really key because if you, hey Norris, how are you? Um, that if you are emotionally intelligent, that emotional. And let me say this. Excuse me. I believe that emotional intelligence simply says that I am in control of my emotions, that I have applied logic and reasoning to my emotions. So now I'm able to express my emotions intellectually and not, um, uh, you know, um, uninhibited. Or I guess maybe I don't know if that's the right word or not. But anybody else, I'm gonna drop the link in here one more time. Oh, C. Rodriguez put in a correction. She said, "Think for yourself, or others will think for you without thinking of you." And that's from Henry Thoreau. That's absolutely correct. And Karen Jones says, "That's not always true about my honesty, particularly the super religious. Many don't like my honesty. I do use discernment whom I do use a discernment according to whom I'm speaking to. No point in pearls before swine." And let me say this about that, because I actually, yeah, hey Ben, if there's a little gear icon, and like at the bottom, you got like a microphone icon, the video icon, but that gear, if you click that and go to audio, it'll allow you to pick the right mic, and that's the key to it. Um, but yeah, so yeah, the help is not very helpful. But yeah, Karen, back to your point. Um, this is the way I deal with people is, you know there are some people that genuinely want to learn and genuinely want dialogue, right? Or they want to better understand your perspective, and those people I have a lot of patience for. I really do. But there are people that show up just to think, they think that they're going to knock you off your pedestal, and and basically they're not there for a dialogue. They're out there to kind of rum roll you or steamroll you, and that shit ain't happening. Because I'll tell you that when people come in and try to put me in my place, so to speak, uh, I look at that as if they're in my house taking a shit in my living room. That ain't gonna fly. That ain't gonna fly. So Gabriella said, she says, "I'm sorry I didn't finish my statement. I hit the send button. Until an honest person strikes a chord with truth, they're not ready to receive." Yeah, and yeah, I agree with that. Um, but here's the thing, like, and I'm going to say something that some people are going to have issue with, and that's that there is some truth that is empirical, concrete, immutable, right? Like gravity. Gravity is pretty immutable. We haven't figured out a way to to really like defy gravity. But um, here's the thing, that there's some truth that's relative. And what do I mean by that? There is truth that is applicable to you, and there is truth that is situational. You know, um, I went through this thing years ago about, hey Freya, how you doing? Freya's checking in from Ireland, I believe. Um, so somebody had a couple that I knew, they had lost their kids to CPS many years ago, and they said that they went to court, and the judge was trying to get them, Scotland, I'm sorry, Freya, um, that when basically they were trying to get their kids back, but they this was their opinion, that the judge was trying to get them to deny Christ. Now, this is back in my preaching days, but I said this then, and I still stand by this, that that if it's whether or not I'm going to get my kids back from child protective services, or I'm going to deny some religious figure, the situational truth is that I'm going to deny that figure. And this was back when I was hip deep in religious bullshit, but I said, my kids come first. Sorry. That's just the way it is. So, anyway, Ben wasn't able to come on, and nobody else is jumping on. You guys are really shy on a Sunday morning, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm glad that you all tuned in. I'm glad that you are all here with me, and I'm glad for all of your comments. I mean, you guys have really, really blessed me today. So So yeah, that's really about it. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Oh, wait a minute. Uh, Ben says he's trying to rejoin. Okay, hang on for a second, Ben. Let me do this. I'm going to put another link in. Okay, there's a new link. Let's see if that works. Let's see if we can't get Ben Urban on here. Because if y'all don't know, Ben is the shit. And it's like this is a cat that's you know, our trajectories have been kind of similar, as far as like coming out of religion. Hey Ben, I'm gonna drop this into your I'm gonna send it to you as a message in Facebook and see if you get it there. Hang on for a second. Shannon Morris says, "Come on, Ben Urban." Oh, there he is. There he is. Speak of the devil. All right. Damn it, man. It's not working. It's not working. God damn it. Hold on. Let me see something here. Make sure that no, it's nothing on my end. No. Did you click the little gear icon on the right down at the bottom? It should be like a settings thing. Or can you jump on your laptop? Damn it. Trying to hold on for Ben here. Yeah, I wish I could sing or something. I'd entertain you guys, but all right, let me see. I'm going to drop this in Ben's instant messenger too. Yep. But okay, so let's see. There's Ben again. You don't have an audio option on the gear. Hang on, let me see. Click the gear. General video, audio, virtual background, and shortcuts. That's what I see. Is that what you see? Do you have a Bluetooth by chance? Trey James. Hey Dre, I there's a link in here if you wanna join in. Because I would love to bring you on. Because I know you're not bashful at all. Yep. So anybody that wants to join in, you can click that link and hopefully you'll have better luck than Ben and you can join in. That's okay for you. If you didn't catch me at the start, there'll be the replay will be out there. Yeah, and you don't want to miss this one. When the replay shows up, you definitely want to catch it from the beginning because it's good shit. I'm not just saying it because it's me, but it is me. I was just talking about there. Basically there are four basic emotions, right? um, happiness, sadness, fear, and anger, right? And then we talked about logic versus emotions, which logic by default is a method of making decisions that uses sound and rational decision making to find the best conclusions. Emotions, on the other hand, are true feeling. And so basically, I talked through all of those, right? And that's what we did. Just kind of talk through all of that. Yeah, but don't go for the summary. Listen to the whole thing. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. I don't know why, but my body had adjusted to Arizona, and so now I'm in Oklahoma, and I'm dealing with like a lot of allergy issues that I guess I haven't had to deal with in a while. Is an air, and and I was saying Arizona wasn't really great for allergies, but I guess in reality it was. So now I'm dealing with shit that I hadn't had to deal with in a while. So Ben is still here, but not here. I want to go ahead and just put him on hold, put him back in the green room until. But yeah, so I think I'm going to go ahead and go. I'm not going to keep you guys any longer than I had to, and I don't know if my man Aaron Tomlinson is going to be going live. And I definitely what there's Ben. Ben is back. Hang on for a oh shit. Ben came back and before I could click him back in, he left. Um, but yeah, one of the things that we're going to work out too is Ben Urban and I are going to get on. We're going to do a live stream. He did one with Kyle Butler that was just absolutely fantastic, and I was so jealous that I said, "Hey Ben, I got to get you on too." Yeah, but there are a bunch of people out here that I want to get out here and do some live streaming with. Vanessa Brooks is one. You know, um, Ben Urban's another. I want to, in a perfect world, I'd like to get Ben and Beth on at the same time because Beth is the bomb too. Um, Mick and Lindsay Cox, uh, um, Eric Reeder. There's like just a whole bunch of people that I like to get on. Phil Drysdale, uh, Phil and I have been on each other's podcasts, and it's always a blast. But anyway, and if you think of if you excuse me, if you think of somebody else that you'd like to see that you think might bring some illumination to things, I'd like love to do that. Oh, and Jamal Broadnex, you know that dude, man. We were supposed to do one about a year ago, and it never came to pass. So Broadnex, I'm talking about you. Yeah, yeah, get on here and do this. But anyway, hey, again, thank you all for showing up today. Thank you all for your comments. And be sure to catch the replay and also like and subscribe to the podcast. It's on iTunes, um, Podbean, all of that. I'm thinking about pulling out of Spotify because of the whole Joe Rogan thing. But we'll see about that. But anyway, until next time, piece of hair grease.